It's September 12th, 1987. My name is Major Alan Schaefer, also known as Dutch, U.S. Army veteran, Special Ops Commander, and the only survivor of the Valverde incident. These tapes are my personal testimony. Insurance. Should anything happen to me, what I found won't be lost. My team was brought in to rescue a Guatemala cabinet minister and his aide, who had been captured by guerrilla forces in Valverde. We located the downed helicopter, and the skinned bodies of those aboard hung in nearby trees, seemingly at the hands of guerrilla fighters. After assaulting their camp, it became clear that the mission was a setup. American intelligence had sent us to retrieve the captured agents who had been on recon for future military action. But none of that matters, because while we were clearing out the guerrillas, something was hunting us. An invisible killer tracked us as we made our way to the extraction point. In 24 hours, it wiped out my entire team. Rick Hawkins, Blaine Cooper, Mac Elliott, Billy Soul, Jorge Ramirez, and Al Dillon. The best soldiers I've ever known. Men I trusted with my life were butchered like animals. It was a nightmare. We walked in with guns, but it had perfect camouflage, advanced weaponry, and could see heat. It was strong and smart, a pitiless hunter. I waited, I watched, and when I understood it, when I saw how it hunted, I killed it. As it lay dying, in a final fuck you, it activated an explosive device. I barely escaped that blast. My radiation sickness and the crater of the explosion are the only evidence it ever was here. I've given my official statement to Agent Peter Keyes of the OWLF, but it's become clear I needed to investigate Valverde myself. Keyes was thorough, but he asked all the wrong questions. I mean, we have proof of alien life, but that life sees us as game. It's an alien whose first contact with humanity was to hunt us for sport. All Keyes cared about was the technology lost in the explosion. He can see the jungle for the trees. I see the threat. He sees the opportunity. Spies are all the same. I mean, we aren't people to them. We are assets. How many soldiers would he feed to those monsters just for a chance to steal from them or to learn from them? The government can't be trusted. So I will have to do this on my own. I'm cutting my treatment short and going off the grid. I will make my way back to South America to Valverde. I was told that there were stories about demons who make trophies of man. I'd like to hear those stories. It's September 12th, 1987. My name is Major Alan Schaefer, also known as Dutch, U.S. Army veteran, Special Ops Commander, and the only survivor of April 8th, 1991. I'm not dead yet. I'll admit, I regret not curing my radiation sickness before I left. It made leaving the country difficult. I cashed in a few favors, took one too many off-the-book flights in rusted-out buckets, but I made it back to Valverde. The area was on lockdown, sealed by American intelligence for study. The complex centered on a crater from the alien self-destruction. I found the scientists slumming in a local bar. A few drinks, a couple of threads later, he was ready to talk. It wasn't much, barely anything I didn't already know. The blast emitted a form of radiation they'd never seen before. Some believed it was extraterrestrial, some didn't. Either they're not too bright, or there's nothing to find. I decided to let them keep searching in vain. It kept them busy and off my trail. I've been touring villages and small towns using the cover of an author writing about South American folklore. I don't know if any of them bought in, but they took my money and told their stories. The closer they were to the jungle, the more stories of devils in the trees. Some were bullshit, made up on the spot, but some carried consistencies that I couldn't ignore. Whatever it was, the demons who make trophies of man, the devil of the trees, or the skull taker, the stories always began on the hottest summer that they could remember. In the summer of 1987, Valverde nearly broke its all-time high in temperatures. They love the heat. It must remind them of home. Everything else confirmed the truth of the stories. Proud warriors skinned and hanged, skulls and spines ripped from their bodies. Maybe it was obvious from the beginning, but it wasn't until I heard the stories that I truly accepted the purpose of these mutilations. I mean, they're taking trophies. They travel impassable distances to hunt us, skin us, and mount us over some alien fireplace on another world. It would be disgusting if it weren't so familiar. Where do I go now? It's been on my mind all year. The takeaway from all this intel is that they've been doing this for decades, centuries maybe. They're coming back, and I need to be there when they do. March 3rd, 1996, Zaire. I thought I could wait. I thought that I could hold back and make my move at the right time. I couldn't. Fuck. I had to find them. I needed to hunt it or let it hunt me. I joined up with any private military company that was headed into the hot zone. I pulled every string, cashed out every favor just to follow the sweat and the death that attracted the demon. I eventually put together a team myself. Lost soldiers and haunted men, willing to fight and to die wherever I led them. They thought that I was a legend, and I let them believe that. I'm quiet and good in what I do. They needed them to see me as a legend, so that they could take them to die in a sweltering jungle. We went on more missions than I can remember. We didn't fire until we were fired at. They thought that it was my code. It wasn't. I was waiting and watching. Our last mission was an evac up in the Congo. A private munition base had gone dark. When we arrived, they'd been dead for days. Bodies strung up on floodlights around the base, all of them skinned, some missing skulls and spines. We secured the site and waited for backup to arrive. In the heat of the day, I stared into the waves of heat coming off the concrete, thinking that any minute they might come alive as the invisible killer. And then they did. I didn't wait. I unloaded every round I had. Trusting me, my team fired in the same direction. It wasn't the first time I'd done it, but this time I knew what I was looking for. It was so fast, we couldn't hit it. We panicked, and stray rounds struck the crate of RPGs. And that explosion hit other munitions that exploded. By the time the smoke cleared, the demon was dead, but so were all my men. I took samples of its blood, pieces of its anatomy, and what tech that I could salvage. And then I burned everything. Then it disappeared. I never checked in with HQ. As far as I know, I was counted among the dead. March 3rd, 1996, Zaire. I thought I could wait. I thought that I could hold back and make my move at the right time. I couldn't. Fuck. I had to find them. I needed to hunt it or let it hunt me. I joined up with any private military company that was headed into the hot zone. I pulled every string, cashed out every favor just to follow the sweat and the death that attracted the demon. I eventually put together a team myself. Lost soldiers and haunted men, willing to fight and to die wherever I led them. January 13th, 2019. I knew that the Predator's deployment to Earth would make it impossible to keep all of this a secret. Sooner or later there would be another player on the board. I'd hoped that it would be another agency, one that understood and respected the threat. Project Stargazer. Our initial intelligence on Stargazer was that they were capable, funded, but inexperienced. But they were smart. They took the OWLF's funding and got it shut down. Everyone we could identify in their group was a disavowed member of another agency, including the OWLF. Lacking strong leadership and a clear directive, they were sloppy and arrogant. They were aware of the Predator's threat, and while they had many of the pieces, they struggled to see the bigger picture. Stargazer was so far behind that we didn't see them as a threat until the event in Mexico. The recovered Predator escape pod was an extraordinary find for Stargazer, but the death toll was a heavy price to pay for taking a Predator captive. My task force has many directives, but one of the most primary is we do not take captives. Retrieve technology, corpses, and other intelligence. But there's no value in a live Predator, only liability. The enemy does not want peace. The enemy does not negotiate. Its only drive on Earth is to hunt. What we might learn from a captive Predator would never be worth the risk to our people. Stargazer didn't learn from their mistakes, and the technology they've recovered has only made them cocky. When the government cut ties to the agency, it should have shuttered their project permanently, but they only shifted their goals. Guerrilla factions and private military companies are being contracted by Stargazer to set up bases and equipment in locations that we have identified as ideal hunting grounds. We believe that the former intelligence project is setting itself up to be a fully independent dealer of otherworldly arms. This is the worst-case scenario. Hostile forces will use those weapons on their enemies, and they will use them on us. All the while, the true enemy stalks us unseen. It's a distraction mankind can't afford. Stargazer will have to be dealt with. January 13th, 2019. I knew that the Predator's deployment to Earth would make it impossible to keep all of this a secret. Sooner or later there would be another player on the board. I'd hoped that it would be another agency, one that understood and respected the threat. Project Stargazer. 2025. It's hard to believe that I'm still here recording this. I probably shouldn't be smoking in the med bay, but fuck it, it's my birthday, for Christ's sakes. I turned 78 today, but I'm out there hunting. I should be retired. I should be doing anything but this. My life shouldn't be possible. But the very thing that I hunt, that hunts me, is what's keeping me alive. As we began to understand the Predator's technology, we started to use it. A fight with a Predator female went bad and I was critically wounded. Dying, I agreed to experimentation. It worked. It worked so well that the cells in my body stopped aging. Pushing 80 now, I'm fighting like a man in his 40s. It's not the only experiment that I've been part of. I am deadlier now than I was in Valverde. The OWLF has been fully reinstated. It's grown larger than ever before. We saved John Keyes from Stargazer. His father was Peter Keyes. I suppose you could say that he was a very dear acquaintance. His son is a gifted scientist. I worry about the future. The Earth is seeing unprecedented rise in heat and war. As the climate changes and the temperatures go up, more and more countries are becoming hunting grounds. We have killed so many of their kind, but they only send more. The number of events that we have witnessed has increased threefold in 10 years. We have made an impression on them, but not like we had hoped. We wanted to show them that we weren't prey, to deter them from ever sending another hunter to our world. We sent a warning, but they took it as a challenge. I fear we have made things worse. If the Predators ever decide that we've grown too bold, I have no doubt that they could burn the Earth and all of humanity with it. My only hope is that while they waste their time on sport, we can rise up together and stand against them as a species. Until then, we keep moving, we keep hunting, and we keep our eyes open. October 12, 1997, Los Angeles. I needed to come back to the States. It wasn't impossible to sneak contraband through customs, but I wasn't willing to risk what I found in a cargo falling into the wrong hands. Instead, I traveled to Mexico aboard a cargo ship bound for the port of Altamira, From there, I made my way to Tijuana and I bunkered down. I had tangible proof of extraterrestrial life in my possession, but no idea what to do with it. I'm not a scientist. I did a soldier's duty and secured valuable intel. This was out of my pay grade. I kept an eye on the news. Los Angeles was having a record-breaking heat wave and a gang war on the streets. It was perfect. I could feel it in my bones. I'd been tracking them for so long, I could think like them. I could smell the prey. I could see the hunting ground. I had to get to LA. Crossing back into the States from Tijuana wasn't that difficult, but by the time that I'd reached the city, it was already over. Like Valverde, the OWLF only found crumbs. What I'd hoped might be an alien ship turned out to be only a launching site. I wanted it too much, and I got sloppy. I breached the OWLF's quarantine and was captured. I'd hoped to be bailed out by Agent Keys, but he died. With Keys gone, the OWLF was leaderless and disorganized. I was interrogated, but I negotiated my release by bartering the alien materials that I'd recovered from the Congo. During the negotiations, it was clear how little they knew. They needed someone who understood the threat, so I offered to work with the OWLF as a consulting advisor. They had the funding, the technology that I needed to continue my hunt. I wouldn't work for them, but I would work with them. There will be a weapon that I can use to hunt down these predators as they move to fresh ground. It's only a matter of time until they see us as a real threat. When the prey can fight back, it's no longer a hunt. It is war.
Stargazer's moving weapons to support a local coup. What interest they have in this upstart regime is unknown. However, any Stargazer intervention in government affairs is cause for action. Your orders are to ascertain the scope of the shipment, and then blow it to hell. Good hunting. Voodoo 1, this is Zeus. Infiltrate the Stargazer base at the following coordinates.